Well, I know, but your boats have been in storage for 4 months.
Let's start this thing. If we can get people to mute their devices online and here, including myself, if I'd shut up, that would help. Look at that, that's much better.
We should do that in real life.
Oh,
No.
God, only do that. Thanks everyone for joining, and today we're going to talk about rules, which we talked about last year, and because it was such an active conversation and such good participation, I thought we would get a more of an expert than we are, and somebody that actually knows what he's talking about, who is Bruce Martinson. And for those of you who don't know Bruce, I knew the first time I met Bruce was in the early 70s. He was sailing Sunkissed, which was his M16, which he kept on Upper Minnetonka, and he would walk it under the Narrows Bridge. He'd tip it over and walk it under the Narrows and come and tow it down, and he sailed for years that boat. He also started sailing lasers and sailing with Tom Burton on the E-boat. And the two of them have been a team for 40 years now. And truly an amazing team. They won the Inland again this last year. And, you know, at the age they are, competing against some of the kids they're competing against is pretty incredible. Not only that, but Bruce is a very accomplished laser sailor who has sailed how many times overseas at the Worlds?
Done about 20-some Master World Championships.
Yeah, and 3 times seconds?
4 times seconds.
4 times.
Never could win.
Can't beat those women, right?
That's right. At one time, yes. Yeah.
So we're just honored to have him join us today. What I've asked him to do is talk a little bit about some of the rules that happen at the start, as far as how do we, you know, when we're set up, who has rights over who, how does it work at the judge's boat. Last year we talked about obstacles and how does that work. There's a lot of little intricate rules that we don't have to necessarily get into, but I kind of want to do a bigger overview of the start and then buoy roundings. And one, Bruce, of the things that happens at buoy roundings that has been discussed quite a bit is when somebody's coming in on port and the starboard boat, their transom is open to the port boat, and the port boat thinks he can tack because he has, you know, the overlap, and then push somebody up, and so the rule changes, I believe, still within the 3 boat length circle, and at the point that maybe they don't have rights. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. And with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Bruce Martinson, and thank you, Bruce.
Well, let's keep this really informal because, you know, first, these are my opinions, not the opinions of U.S. Sailing, World Sailing, or anybody else. I think in the
They won't hear it though.
yeah, I said we're going to talk about new rules.
Just a speaker, not the mic.
So what I did is I have a copy of 20 copies. If you guys want to just have those, we can cover those today. And
Or not mute.
that could be a very, very short subject because basically there really isn't much of anything that's actually changed
Nobody
in how you're
reacted,
going to
so.
sail on a day-to-day basis out there. I mean, there's one, when somebody tacks and you do a slam dunk on them, I'll go over what that is, where the change is there. But in general, the new rules really aren't much, other than it made a real headache for me, because I'm in charge of Club Judge, which is the initial training for US sailing for judges. Well, they changed all of Part 5, which has to do with those requirements. And so I have to go back.
Excuse me, I got a question. Can anyone hear it? Is everyone hearing it? Or, and when I turned off our speaker, were you continuing to hear it?
Right, you got two speakers on, a speaker and mic at your end, Bruce.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn this off. Raise your hand if you can't hear us, okay? All right. Okay.
Now, okay,
Can you hear us?
everybody still hear us all right?
Okay, you can, okay, we're good, thank you, all right.
So let's see. You know, so really things haven't changed a whole lot when it comes to the new rules. And so, you know, we probably won't spend an awful lot of time on it. This little handout goes through all the fine details that Dave Perry went through. I went down to Lake Geneva last week and was there for one of his seminars on the new rules, and he basically said, you know, there really isn't anything that you have to know. So if you like, we can go ahead and do spend more time on the rules at the start and the rules at marks. That's perfectly fine. I've got a PowerPoint, but we're not gonna be able to show the PowerPoint though, are we?
You can share your screen.
But that'll go for the people on
Sure.
your screen, not on my screen.
Or not live.
But I think there are a couple of things that you really need to do first is look at terminology. If you look in the rule book, at the very beginning of the rule book, there's a bunch of terms, and they've slightly modified those a little bit, and basically go back to the new rules and stuff. Every 4 years, after the Olympics, they go ahead and they rewrite the rules or correct the rule book. And all they're really trying to do is they're trying to make things more simple, or where there's been problems or questions and interpretations, they try to clarify those. So that's why you're really not getting, you know, any real difference in strategy or anything else with the new, but they're just trying to get the definitions a little bit more clear so that everybody understands them easier. And so basically I've got, I wonder how we could do this, because I brought a PowerPoint, and
Is the PowerPoint something you could share to Cindy and Cindy could share?
yeah,
on
but
her
it's not gonna
screen?
show up here for everybody else.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't have my television set up.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, a couple of the rules I think we need to look at is, you know, what is an obstruction? An obstruction is an object that a boat could not pass without changing course if you were sailing directly towards it and one hull length from her. So that's, you know, you gotta be close for it to be much. And an obstruction can be safely passed on one side, and or a line that's designated by the sailing instructions as also an obstruction. So basically what that's talking about is if you have a restricted line, and I don't know if a Minnetonka ever does that in their sailing instructions, but sometimes the starting line is in the middle of the race course. And in the sailing instructions, they can say that you can't go through there, so that becomes an obstruction. And so as you approach it, you know, somebody can ask you for the right to either go one side or the other of it, and then you have to go along with it. You can't force somebody to cross into a restricted zone.
But only when they're one boat length away?
When they have to make a substantial course change when they're one boat length away. So in other words, actually, we're probably gonna have to use the boats here a lot, just because we don't
Yeah.
have the.
We have a fleet of boats.
Yeah.
It's very exciting,
So,
but it doesn't identify any particular boat, so don't take offense.
oh great, it's nice and magnetic.
No cell number on
Except Roger is the red boat.
So basically, if you're on a starting line, and you're coming up to this boat, this boat's just sitting here luffing like this. You have two boats approaching it. This one's windward, this one's leeward. Who has right of way? Who gets to choose which side to go on of this obstruction? Because it's something that you guys are gonna, these two boats are gonna have to, when they get a boat length away, they're gonna have to make a substantial change in their direction. So, who gets to choose which way you go on the green boat?
What?
Yellow.
Yellow,
And that's because
call for room.
they're the right-of-way boat. And so the right-of-way boat gets to choose which side of the obstruction they go to. So if he chooses to go this way, what does he have to do for this boat?
Let him go too.
He's gotta give him room to pass the obstruction. And so what is room? I'm actually gonna use mostly the old definitions just because I have them all written here, it's a lot easier. But it isn't really a whole lot of change. And where you find those is just in the beginning of the rule book. And so if I answer any question and you have questions whether I have it right or not, we will go to the rule book. In fact, I should always go to the rule book. Room is the space a boat needs in the existing conditions, including space to comply with their obligations under the rules of Part 2 and Rule 31, while maneuvering promptly in a seaman-like way. So
that's a simplified.
that's what room is. This boat needs to give this boat room because this is an obstruction. And the obstruction rule is, if you guys are into rules, it's Rule 19.
So boat 3 is an obstruction even though he's racing?
Yes.
Interesting.
And what is an obstruction?
This is pre-start, correct?
This is
Anytime? Oh,
yeah. If there's something that's there and that's in your way, it's an obstruction.
okay.
And it's something that these boats can't pass, and they're coming up to it. There's no overlap with this boat yet. And so as they come up to it, and these guys are going faster, and this boat is sitting still, then all of a sudden he's an obstruction to these two boats. So this boat has to give him room. How much room does he have to give him? And that's where they talk about in the existing conditions. So if it's light and drifty conditions, and this boat would need to give just enough room for him to go by, and enough room, maybe it's just a foot for him to pass. If it's really windy and there's a lot of waves, he's got to give him more room so he can feel safely passing. So that's why they take it in the existing conditions. They're talking about, you've got to make it safe. In other words, boats are never supposed to hit each other, and this boat shouldn't fear that he's going to hit this boat, or you probably didn't give him enough room. So if he goes by him, now all of a sudden, once he establishes an overlap, now conditions have changed, right? This boat's still, in other words, this boat is now the right-of-way boat with this boat, correct? Mm-hmm. So what can this boat do? This boat needs to work on keeping clear, correct? And so, as long as he just sails on by and doesn't head him up, he's fine just sitting there. But once he gets his bow below him, he's got to give him, he's got to, in other words, he just basically established an overlap and gained right away. And so there's Rule 15, which, tries to take and help the poor women out there, and basically it says, when a boat acquires right of way, she shall initially give the other boat room to keep clear unless she acquires right of way because of the other boat's action. So in other words, since this boat is acquired right of way because of its action of going below, he's got to give him room. So in other words, he's got to give him enough room to head up. In other words, if his stern swings down, he's got to give him a little room to go ahead so he can work on trying to keep clear. So that's one thing on the start, that you really got to be careful of. When you two boats are coming up to somebody, if this boat decides he wants to go above, again, when he changes course, what does he do? That's 16:1. When a right-of-way boat changes course, he shall give the other boat room to keep clear. In other words, you can't come down here like this and just slam it into him. You've got to give him room to keep clear. So really, the rules are all basically there. I know there's a lot of rules, and In fact, last night, just to kind of diverge here for a minute, I just happened to be going through the internet and I found this Scuttlebutt had this whole thing on rules and that they're too complicated and they want to simplify them and I mean, it was a long article, but you know, as much as people want to simplify them, there are so many different situations that you get involved in that you need all these rules to, you know, to make sure that everybody knows who has right of way and who needs to keep clear. If they weren't real precise, you know, how would you, it's like, well, what is his interpretation? What's he think what he should do? And what this guy thinks he should do and what you think he should do are different. And so that's why, you know, they get really into the nitty gritty on some of these rules, is they're really just trying to make it so that when we see a situation, we clearly have our mind what the other boat may do, what obligations we have, and what obligations he has. So, as I say, you know, we just went through 3 rules in this boat trying to decide whether he's going up or down, and they're there just to try to keep people from hitting each other, and so that each boat knows what the other boat's going to do. So that's coming up.
That's helpful, because most of my confusion isn't with just 2 boats. It's when there's 3 or 4 boats all coming together. That's where my head explodes.
If you look at the racing rules of sailing, they are all written involving 2 boats.
Yeah.
Each rule is involving just 2 boats. It's these 2 boats, and then it's these 2 boats, and these 2 boats, and so it just moves on. But again, that's where if there was a 3rd boat, or a 4th boat, just grab me a black one. We'll think this is a sailboat. So if this boat alters here, this boat is obligated to keep here, which he has to give this boat room to keep clear, which this one has to give this boat room to keep clear. And that's where it gets, it gets in a bigger situation where you have multiple boats involved. But every situation is between you and the boat next to you, and it is between the boat next to you and the boat next to him. So that's why if you're gonna come in and you've got a very crowded mark rounding or something like that, you really gotta think ahead and start communicating with the boat next to you as to what your intentions are, so that he can communicate to the boat next to him, so he can communicate the boat next to him, and you can get through this without running into each other.
So what you can't do is, if you're that
Yellow
moored
boat?
you can't just push up that red boat. You have to give that red boat room.
Yeah.
Even though you are the lured boat with right away.
Right, and then he is getting, if he's close to this boat, he has to give this boat room to respond, which has to give this boat room to respond. So when you start making and luffing multiple boats, yeah, it's the boat next to you, but you start yelling at, I shouldn't say yelling, you're just trying to inform him that you want to, you keep making sure they ever hear, you're really not mad, it's just that you want to make sure they understand that, you're changing course and that they need to start passing up the line, that they all gotta stay, and so, which leads me to another point. A boat doesn't have to anticipate another boat's, what they're gonna do. It's not until they have the overlap that they have to. In other words, when you're coming up to this obstruction here, it's not until this boat starts to go down that he has to give you room. But that's why you might want to ask him, are you going below him? Just so that you know what to expect. He can't run you into that boat or he didn't give you room. You could, if he didn't give you room and you went up because he didn't let you go and you wanted to go below, you just think protest and say you didn't give me room and I had to avoid. But then again, who knows? He's going to get trapped below him and you might be better going above him, so who cares? You don't have to protest. It says you may protest another boat. So just because there's an incident that somebody might have done something wrong, it's not necessarily to your disadvantage. You don't have to protest it. It says you may protest the other boat.
Wouldn't you have to ask for room? And then if he doesn't.
No, I don't. Where in the rules does it say you have to ask for room?
Well,
There
but how
is-
would he know you wanna go below with him?
It's just that he knows if he goes below, he's gotta give you room.
Okay.
In other words, there's only a couple times in the salience of the rules that actually require a hail. The first one would be, guess,
Port starboard.
No?
No?
what don't we do enough of at times?
Swear?
Yeah, swear. Protest. You have to use the word protest.
yeah.
That's a required hail. You can't say do your turns, you can't say, and I'll go into this when we talk about protest later on if you want. But the required hails are protest. And the other one now, which is just this year's rule book, it wasn't in last year's rule book, room to tack. In other words, if you're coming up and you have an obstruction, such as this, again, this starboard tack boat, you two are coming on port, who's got right of way?
Green.
The black one has right of way over these two boats, but who has right of way here? Green, so he gets to do what?
Pick.
He either gets to choose to go here, or he can ask this boat for room to tack. So that's now a required hail, room to tack. You'll see that in there somewhere, I think it's usually under 19 or 20, I guess it is. And that's just asking to tack at an obstruction. And so if this boat's gonna duck him, he just knows that he has to give this boat room. It's not something that he has to hail for. It wouldn't hurt to, if you see him starting to go down, you might wanna just say, hey, you gotta give me room, because you're going behind. Again, communicate. There's nothing wrong with communicating. You know, you're not really trying to fake anybody out by not communicating. It really never ends well. So basically, this is one where, you know, you really get, as I say, and then the other one, the other third hail that is required is if I ask for room, this green boat asks for room to tack, if you want this boat to tack and you're gonna just duck him, he says, you tack. And that would be this boat here saying you tack, and he's just gonna duck you both. So those are really the only 3 times you need to say anything on the race course. But don't hesitate to say things just to make sure everybody knows what's going on in your mind and you don't surprise anybody.
If Red says you tap, do they have to duck?
Well, he could just go and follow, and he could tack too.
Yeah.
But it's just you tack, and then actually I better get the new rule book. Of course, they don't have the new rule book out yet, so I had to take a,
Well, I haven't.
you have the new rule book?
I do.
How did you get that?
Well,
Did it
it's
just
special.
Special.
Jeff Bezos and I are really,
Oh, good.
really
As a sailor, I'm supposed to get one, and they haven't sent it to me yet, so I guess I'm not on the
To
list.
say
of-
either.
While he's looking for that, could you just define the overlap, cause is
Sure.
it when the,
Let's go, I know the most important time is usually coming downwind, but it also comes upwind too. All right.
mine is in the rules in practice.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not any good.
Well, no, but he has the rules. Somehow he got the rules. The rule book is in the back.
Oh, see, I didn't have it.
Well, U.S. Sailing hasn't got their edition out yet because Christmas time, World Sailing realized they made a few mistakes. So they had to go back and send corrections to the rules, so it took a little while to get printed, so he probably doesn't have the updated rules. So I'll come back to that. So let's finish up her question. Overlap. So if you're coming down to this mark, when does a boat have an overlap with this boat? You basically need to take do you have a pen or anything else on this or not? When they'll actually not be permanent?
The Sharpie.
No,
Dry
it's,
erase,
it-
okay.
Yeah. I'm an
I've done that before. Okay, so basically, does this boat have an overlap?
No. Yes.
Does this boat have an overlap? Does this boat have an overlap with this boat?
Yes.
Yes. So coming into this mark, because, all right, again, we need to read our definitions, just because I don't wanna just take and give it to you, it's in the rule books, truly.
So the black boat has overlap on the green boat, and the green boat has overlap on the red boat, but the black boat does not have overlap on the red boat, right?
Therefore, the
Oh.
black boat has an overlap.
Okay, okay, so it's like a transitive type of thing.
Yeah. Let's see.
Transitive.
So there is no definition of overlap in the boat, or in the rule book. It is clear stern or clear ahead. So we'll go back and read clear stern and clear ahead. One boat is clear stern of another when her hull and equipment in normal position are behind a line of beam from the aftmost point of the boat's hull and equipment in normal position. So if there is an A-scow and he has a boomkin, it's from his boomkin. And I gotta take a look here, and do you wanna look and see if that's changed? I should look in your rule book. See if they change it. I know they're always simplifying things, and that's one that they,
I remember reading about that recently.
yeah, he got this in such nice small print that we probably won't. be
Yeah,
able to read
well,
it.
that's the more special version.
Yeah, I know. They'll be just hauling equipment.
That's the use.
I'll tell you why I had questions with that later. All right, so we're basically back here reading out clear.
So
stern.
equipment is not a spinnaker though.
Yes.
It
In other
is.
words, if the spinnaker's hanging out here, the boat's here, and the spinnaker's out here,
Oh, that's equipment.
that's equipment.
Okay.
So
That-
if it's any part of the
Interesting.
boat that's behind a line of a beam from,
Yet another reason to keep that spinnaker out.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right, you're keeping it just, but now, I know you see this in the, in the pictures in the rule book though, you're coming up to the finish line and your boats are even bow to bow and the guy lets his spinnaker fly out, way out in front of him, that doesn't count. It's in normal position.
Oh, there we go.
So it says,
Okay.
hull equipment, here it says, clear stern of another when her hull and equipment in normal position. So they're taking that away from you. Are behind a line of beam aftmost part of the other boat's hull and equipment in normal position. The other boat is clear ahead. They overlap when neither is clear astern. However, they are also overlap when a boat between them overlaps both. These terms always apply to boats on the same tack. They apply to boats on opposite tack only when Rule 18 applies between them and other boats are sailing more than 90 degrees from the wind. So that's where, it's downwind that you have the overlap, whereas upwind you may not have an overlap. So basically what it is if this boat has an overlap with this boat has an overlap with this boat, with its spinnaker now in normal position, coming to this mark, this boat has to give all three of those boats room. And I think that's probably one of your biggest questions is, the same thing, if you're going upwind. Now, if you had something like this, so if this boat here is overlapped with this boat, and this boat is overlapped with this boat, does it get room on the red boat?
No.
Because it's not between these two boats. That's what that part of the rule said. It has to be between the two boats. So that's why, even though he's overlapped here, he'll get room on this boat, but he doesn't get room on that boat. It has to be between them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to just go off in different directions when you do these because, as I say, you gotta go back and read your definitions. And if the definition is not in the rule book, then it's Webster's dictionary that we use to take and determine, like for damage or something like that. That's not listed. There is actually an appeal that helps us determine damage or what is damage and serious damage. But generally, if the term's not in, and it'll also be in italics. If it's in italics, you'll find it in the definitions. So that's another way to use your rule book. Let's see. Back to the starting line. The other one that I see that a lot of times that people sometimes don't quite follow the rules on is this boat comes in here. No, I should probably try to do this, like I tell people to do when they come. When people come and use the boats and stuff when we're doing a protest hearing, they're always driving the boats around and I want to slap their hand because, you know, we can't visually see where all boats were in different situations. And so basically, let's see if I got, is there another green boat over there somewhere?
No, but there's a couple black ones.
Oh, here, I got it over here.
Oh, yeah, you stash them.
I stashed them, there we go.
You leave with those, you're a dead man.
Oh no, I got my own boats.
Okay.
I got boats. I'm not gonna mix them up, but yours are not much more fancy than mine, so. I don't got the numbers in the right order, but that's okay. All right, situation like this. This boat comes up here, he sees these boats and he wants to tack into leeward of them. So, who has right away here?
We're pre-start.
Pre-start, yep,
Green boat,
green boat, right. And he's gotta give this boat
room,
room to keep clear. This boat on port tack, who has right away between this boat and this boat?
green boat until he tags.
Okay, he's on starboard, okay, so this boat's just past head to wind. Now let's just take and go one step further.
Did the stock gun go?
No, I'm sorry, line's still up here. We'll go up there. Can this yellow boat make that boat continue to go up?
No,
And why not?
they didn't tack. They didn't complete that tack.
This boat doesn't get right away to, as a leeward boat until he gets back on the heading that he would normally be on. And so we see that happen all the time. Somebody comes in and lee bows you, and instantly they're trying to stuff you up. And
You
it's
mean
like,
the Dutch sailors?
yeah,
Is that who you were referring to?
I haven't sailed against. I can't think of many Dutch sailors I sailed against, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
know a couple Dutch judges, but I don't know any Dutch sailors. So, but that's one area that's really many times on a starting line people violate. In other words, if you come in on port, you have to complete your tack before you get right away. You're on starboard tack from the moment you get here, but you don't gain right away until you complete your tack. And that's comes under Rule 13, which is,
And that's down into your normal sailing position.
yeah, in other words, where you would be heading if you were heading
Close
close
haul,
haul going
yeah.
upwind. Because I know they just changed Rule 13, so that's why I gotta read the Rule 13 out. Yeah, they promised their rule books here in the next month or two. After a boat passes head to wind, she shall keep clear of the other boats until she is on a close haul course. During that time, rules 10, 11, and 12 do not apply. So that's why Rule 11 doesn't apply here until she comes back to a close haul course. If two boats are subject to this rule at the same time, both boats are tacking. We'll cover Rule 13. The one on the other port side or the one astern shall keep clear. So in other words, I always think that the boat to the right of it, if two boats are coming up and tacking together, the boat on the right is right away. So that's basically another thing that happens on the starting line. The other one is what everybody likes so much is at the race committee boat. And if you want to look at this in more detail, it's case number 126. I think which is a world sailing. Yeah, if you ever hear people talk about cases and appeals, appeals are the book of situations that have come to U.S. sailing, and the appeals committee has decided. And not all appeals are in the appeals book, but ones that they think really help demonstrate or clarify a rule, they'll put in the appeals book. And so appeals are from U.S. sailing. Case book, if you see something listed as case book, you have to go to the World Sailing's book of examples, and I believe it's case 146.
And we should all read that, probably tonight.
Oh, I can pull it up on
You just read it for us. Send us the Highland.
I'll send them then.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. How does that sound? If you have your deals, I'll just send it to you. It's a lot easier. It has nice diagrams, but we'll really show this here and explain this pretty good because I know in the club judge program, the first demonstration of the protest is this case. And that was before it became case 146. So let's just move everybody down here a little bit. And again, I'm gonna try to set my boats up. They really stick well, don't they?
They're good stickers.
Yeah.
We could go rub them in the dirt and they might get worse.
Can the green boat do this?
What's he doing?
Depends where you are.
Oh, I see.
Position one, yes.
Position 3 here, who has right away?
Green.
Green,
Position 2, who has
green,
Position 1,
red.
who has right away?
Green.
Green.
Any obligations?
Yes.
He has to give him room to get around the committee vote.
No.
He altered course between here and here, didn't he? I should maybe make that more clear, right?
Okay,
And so once he altered course, he's gotta do what?
give him room.
Give this boat room to keep clear. If this boat's overlapped enough that he can't
Right.
swing by him, he's gotta give him room.
And that's like an instantaneous situation that
Yep.
you get there and you can't get out.
Right, you can't make somebody run into something. You can't use the rules, and when you change course, that's why you've gotta give the boat room to keep clear. Now, if this was the situation,
So you're showing he didn't change course?
yes. So now, in that situation, does this boat get room?
No, he's barging.
But what happens if he comes in here like this? What should the green boat do?
Give him room.
Give him room.
And then protest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't want him to run into the nice new committee boat that's got a wooden back and, do thousands of dollars worth of damage. Because your Yinglings will do that very quickly. The bows of the Yinglings go right through anything fiberglass, so.
And we're proud of that.
Yeah. You usually win in any head-on collision. Yeah.
Can you go through the example of if some of the yellow want to come in on the port tack?
To where? To the
try
race committee boat?
To some of the greens to try to get across, yeah,
Come up and show me.
like that.
When the race committee like to start like
if
this,
they come in to try to sneak in there.
and they want to come in like this,
No, just,
oh, you get to play with the boats.
oh, okay.
I won't slap your hands if you don't.
Yeah.
Alright, so.
You can drive them, and that way I know
What
it.
if he's like closer to the line
Yeah,
and this guy is just coming out of nowhere and all of a sudden, boom, wants to get there.
he wants to push this boat
Yeah,
up like this.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Going back to the other situation,
Yes.
he comes in on port, and he tacks here.
He has to complete
Can
the
he-
attack.
And
He's
he's
gotta
altered
complete-
course.
Yeah, well, but also
He's-
he's
he has
now,
to
just to
complete
lure
his
to view, has he completed his tack yet?
No.
No,
No,
He can't make this boat do
so
anything.
he can't do that. He
No,
can't
this
push
boat,
that green
this boat is under no obligations until this boat completes its tack,
Until
and
he-
then,
Now he can.
and then this boat has to give him room to keep clear under Rule 15. In other words, because he just established right away,
Yeah,
and then what is Rule 15? Once the other boat establishes right away on you, he's gotta give you room. And then if he heads up, again, he's gotta give you room. So that's why, you gotta be really careful when you complete you complete your tack. And then after that, you gotta look to see if he's got room. And also, can he do this if the race committee votes there? If he's completed his tack, and you're already locked in, he's gotta give you room. If there's nowhere to go for him to go, you know.
And is that because of overlap?
That's because he'd already established an overlap and he can't get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if this boat, yeah, he has right of way as a leeward boat,
Mm-hmm.
but he can't push this boat, he's gotta give this boat room to keep clear. This boat can't, there's no room for him to keep clear, so he has to hold his course until this boat can, and then he needs to, if he gets past it, then he needs to come up.
I think, while we're right there, I wanna remind everyone that Yinglings turn in the center of the boat. So when we head up, the back of our boat comes into the guy below you. So you have to take that into consideration when you're giving room and you're saying head up, head up. Well, if he has to head up and he can't, that would be a problem too. And it's a function of Yinglings more than it is of Scouts. We pivot in the middle.
Yeah. And again, basically, going back to the definition of room, the space a boat needs in the existing conditions, including space to comply with her obligations under Rule Part 2 and 31, while maneuvering in a seaman-like manner. If this boat just swings really hard and fast, which is not a seaman-like thing to do, and hits you, he broke the rule, because he didn't do it in a seaman-like manner. And then the other part you really should look at is the rule that says keeping clear, which is a boat keeps clear of a right-of-way boat if the right-of-way boat can sail her course with no need to take avoiding action. So in other words, if a port tack boat comes like this and crosses ahead of you, and this boat didn't need to take avoiding action, this boat kept clear. Now what happens if it's blowing 25, there's big lumpy waves, and this boat comes and may have crossed you, but this boat says, God, it's so rough, I don't dare hold my course, and heads down a little bit. Did this boat keep clear? No.
Not freaking.
And again, you're gonna look at, if you look at appeals, I can't bring it up, but again, Appeal 50, it talks about, it gives the protest committee guidance on how to deal with a situation like that. If this boat has, just to summarize it, a boat has reasonable apprehension, then he didn't keep clear.
What about when you're coming in on port and this boat aims down and then you're trying to cross and then they alter course up at you again?
That would be Rule 16.
Bruce Chafee.
So, did I do that to you?
No, Bruce Chafee.
Oh.
Different Bruce. More evil.
More evil.
Can you show the move the boats where
For how that happens?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. You got a green boat coming up here in starboard. And you have a, let's go about the right way. And let's see.
Did you yell protest?
I'm trying to think of how to say it.
I yelled a lot.
But was it protest? Or just a lot of work?
So you're thinking about something like this. You're coming along here, he sees you coming, he bears down at you a little bit. So here's what Rule 16. When a right-of-way boat, which would be the green boat, changes course, she shall give the other boat room to keep clear. In other words, if he does this late enough that you can either tack or cross him, you're fine. But then 16.2 says, in addition, on a beat to windward, these boats are on a beat to windward, when a port tack boat is keeping clear by sailing to pass to leeward of a starboard tack boat, the starboard boat shall not bear away if as a result the port tack boat must change course immediately to continue keeping clear. So in other words, if you're not steering a course to pass the stern of this blue boat and you're still trying to cross, he can come back up again as long as he gives you room to keep clear. But if you're trying to, what you don't want to happen is this guy turns down to go like this. This boat can't turn down again after he's already made his pass to go astern of you to make him go further astern of you.
Usually you think you have enough room to pass and all of a sudden they alter up and then you have to like slam a tack.
Did he give you enough time to do it? Now that he gave you room to tack. He can come back up because you weren't trying to go astern of him. It's when he's trying to, the part 2 of that rule is when a boat is trying to duck you and you go. And you see this and they take that out for team racing because you do that all the time.
Yeah.
You hunt the guy down and try to push him further back or whatever, or control him. But as long as you're not trying to pass astern of him and he alters again, I think that's.
So you can alter your course to
try to make him want to tack earlier.
tack earlier.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's okay.
You can't do it while you're.
Well, you can't make it, if he's already gonna pass astern of you,
Right.
you can't go down and make him go
going down.
further
Right.
astern of you. That's what it's telling you can't do. You can alter course down, but if you alter back up and you don't give him room to keep clear, you are the right-of-way boat that alter course, you're now obligated to give him room to keep clear. If you did this and all of a sudden you had a tack and I had to come back up and I had to head up a little bit further, I might yell at you as far as, but I would make sure I kept clear. Just because, you know, if it goes to a room, you don't wanna make contact. You make contact, someone's gotta go, and whether you didn't give him room, you don't want, I can tell you this, that I'm an international sailing judge, and so I see things from all over. And from, you know, all levels of competition, your safest thing is never to go to the room. You may be right as can be, and I've seen boats that they should never get thrown out. And so, as I say, it doesn't hurt to protest somebody and bring it to, you know, as long as you don't hit somebody, great. And talk about it afterwards, but you shouldn't hesitate to protest somebody that keeps repeatedly, you know, barging at the starting line and that type of stuff, because it takes the fun out of the game if everybody's playing the same rules. But, you know, one, if you are gonna protest, don't hit the guy, because then someone's gotta go. In a situation like this, if it came and this boat altered and kept clear of this boat and he protested you, you might get thrown up, but this boat probably wouldn't at all because he gave you room. In other words, you're going into the room where you really can't lose because you didn't make contact. You kept clear, you gave him room, but you think that he didn't get his tack completed before he had to alter again. So, in other words, you can set yourself up when you go to the room so you really can't lose. But
you still can.
Well, really on something like that, but it just, but yeah, you don't want to make contact because then someone's got to get tossed. Somebody broke a rule somewhere. But in a situation like that, you also want to take and let the guy know you don't want to waste time with me afterwards if you're going to keep following me and not completing your tack. Because what would you get? This boat here, and you had to alter again, and he decided to tack, so you didn't give him room to tack.
Well, it's usually, he comes up, forces you to tack so he can roll you.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a good thing to go out and practice, and I wish we'd do that more, and I wish I could get people in the leisure to that. Because there's a lot of times when you go up and you leave out somebody, it's much better to duck them. You know, in other words, if you come up here and, you know, they've got good boat speed, you can tack, but they're gonna roll you, and you're gonna be in a lot worse shape than if you'd have just ducked them.
Right, but he came down, he usually comes down, you think you can cross, and then he comes up. And then it's kinda too late to be able to duck him, and so you have to slam it, and then
you go slow.
Then, yeah, and then it'll roll you over.
One of those bad situations.
That's a good move on his part. I guess.
Yeah. So, let's see, what else happens out there on the starting line? So we kind of got this. Did everybody pretty feel comfortable when barging? There is no anti-barging rule. You won't find a rule in the rule book that says anything about barging. Terms never used. You'll see it sometimes in the appeals and that type of stuff as a quotes barging. But it's basically when this boat establishes an overlap with the race committee boat, does he have room to keep clear if you alter course? And that's the big thing. The other one here on the start too is, let's see how we can do this. Yellow boat's moving a little faster. So
I'm
before
sorry,
the
which
starting
is yellow?
gun, oh, we're, oh,
Red or green?
no, actually, we're gonna get rid of these boats. These are both sailing up to the starting line. And this boat is clear astern. Can this green boat luff the red boat after this, before the start?
Yes, as soon as he gets an overlap,
Okay,
before the start.
the gun went off. Can the green boat luff the red boat?
When did he establish the overlap?
It's how did he establish
How
the
did he, yeah, I'm sorry. How,
from
yeah.
astern?
So he had to keep clear.
He can't do what? Sail above his proper course.
Yeah.
So in other words, that's rule 17. Says, if a boat clear astern becomes overlap within 2 hull lengths to leeward of a boat on the same tack. So in other words, they gotta be within 2 boat lengths. She shall not sail above her proper course while they remain overlap and on the same tack, and an overlap within the distance, unless it doing so she promptly sails astern of the other boat. This rule does not apply if the overlap begins while the windward boat is that's not in the rule book, that's as far as it goes this year. So, basically, since and this is something that I think is so hard to know, because you're getting to say on the starting line, and you're not thinking about this overlap 20 seconds or 30 seconds before the gun. You don't really think about how that overlap began, and all of a sudden he wants to luff. It's like, I don't remember how he established an overlap. And so, as I say, that's a really, to me, it's a really hard thing for me to know. I just luffed him.
Well, you
So
might
yes,
not even been aware of him when he established
right,
it.
how he
now.
ever got it.
Yeah.
So now, let's move this same scenario. Gun's gone off. Can this boat luff this boat?
Yes,
And that's because,
he's allowed to get around the mark. But he has
because,
to
in other
drop
words, he
back.
established an overlap from astern, but can he luff him up here?
Proper course.
Proper course, right. It's his proper course is to sail on this side of the mark.
What happens if the green boat is over early? How can they go all the way up before they return?
They
And
basically.
Can they go head to wind to slow down?
Yeah, he can go head to wind. In other words, this boat,
Green.
when in a windward leeward situation, how far can the green boat luff the red boat?
Get to the end
Up
of
to its
the
proper
wind.
course.
He can luff, so he doesn't go past head to wind.
Right.
This boat may have to tack off, but it's this boat's course that he can luff up to head to wind.
To get around the mark, but once
Right.
he's around the mark,
He has to fall off to his
drop
proper
back
course,
to-
right.
Yeah.
But his question here was,
Yeah, so if you go back and green's over early,
Yep.
just move them to the middle of the line, see?
yep,
So green's over early, can green luff head to wind, because that would be its proper course, before he returns to the line where he has no rights.
oh,
When does green lose rights?
I'm gonna,
The gun hasn't gone off
No,
yet.
the gun's
but
gone
he's
off,
oh,
and green was over early, but red wasn't. It doesn't matter if red was.
so 21.1, a boat sailing towards the pre-start side of the starting line or one of its extensions after the starting signal to start or to comply with rule 30.1, which is starting, shall keep clear of other boats not doing so until her hull is completely on the port pre-start sideline. So once she starts to head back to the pre-start, she loses her rights.
Okay.
Until she turns to go back,
She can go straight up, head
Yeah.
to wind, yes? Green
not in this
can.
case because she established from astern, but that's okay.
Okay, well, assuming that.
Assuming
was
that
the
this,
case,
this was like this to begin with, they are always,
then
then she
green
could
could go head to
ahead,
wind,
yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Until
even
she
though
goes-
he's over early, he can
It's
still
because
go ahead to win.
until a boat sailing towards the pre-start, until she's sailing towards the pre-start of the starting line, she
Gotcha.
doesn't lose her rights.
Okay,
So sometimes what happens if you're over early, don't be a jerk and go head to wind and screw all these other boats up.
why
Just,
not?
well, go head to wind if you need to because you got boats to leeward, but just sit there and wait, and then don't, and the quicker you can stop your boat, the
Gotcha,
sooner you can turn to go back.
gotcha.
And I don't know if any of you have sailed with Vicaris yet or not. In Vicaris, I don't know if you, it's a, looks like my phone, and it mounts on the mast of an E-boat. And I sailed 4 regattas, major regattas last year, and they used the Vicaris starting system. And basically, it's a computer in your boat, and it'll give you information as far as how far you are from the starting line. You don't have to ping the ends or anything else. You always see the E-boats out there pinging the ends of the line. It knows where the starting line is. The race control has a list of all the boats, and it can see all the boats at all the time. And so when they'll say 15 minutes to start, and so this clock will just start counting down on it, and the signals will go off at 5 minutes, and just like everything else is normal. But it will tell you if you're OCS, and what it is as soon as the gun goes off, your screen will flash OCS, OCS,
Oh, cool.
and you know that you need to go back. And they don't do round the ends then, because you just stop, you turn, and as soon as you clear the starting line, it senses it, and it'll tell you that you're all clear, and you can start again.
And we're not allowed.
You're
not allowed those
That's
things.
too technical. for
But you think that's, yeah, it's $1,000 for the deal. But we sailed 4 regattas, and we sailed 6, 7 races in each regatta. We never had one general recall.
That is awesome.
And, it is just so much more fun, because when we were here at Minnetonka for an E-boat regatta, we went through 6 general recalls, we spent 6 hours in the water and got 2 races off. And, I would much rather spend $1,000 that's gonna last me for a long, long time, and not have to go through all the pain and the, also, I know I'm getting good starts because it's telling me how far I'm behind the starting line. It just makes life so much more fun. So I'm not a commercial, I have no vested interest in Vicaris, but I'll tell you, it is
How's it spelled?
VAKRUS or something like that. But it looks about the size of your phone, and everybody has to mount them on their mast in the same position so it knows where all the boats are.
Wow.
It also is so complex that it knows the shape of your boat. So that if you're sailing this way on the line, and if it was this way, you'd be over the line, it knows that you're sailing this direction so that your boat's only 5 feet wide as opposed to
That's weird.
12 feet from the bow. I mean, I tell you, it makes it just so much more fun because you spend all your time sailing and you don't worry about all the general recalls and that type of stuff. So if you get introduced to it or people talk about it, it can make your life, I think, to me, it just makes sailing a lot more fun. It does take away some of the starting skills, people who can, I don't know if you guys sail some of the big regattas and stuff, we have starting lines that you can hardly see the end of. And I was in Portugal last year, and we had 10-foot swells, you couldn't see the end of the line half the time. And, you just guessed where you were. And that's no good way to start. I mean, you want all the boats close together, because that way, it's a much better race. So it's got some really
You're in
big,
a laser and 10
yeah,
foot swells,
it's
yeah,
just-
you can see lots.
You couldn't see the other end. But, here our lines are fairly short, and you can use references on shore to get your But as I say, you get bigger regattas and stuff, if they wanna do that, I'd say you'd have a lot more fun at the regattas using that system than not.
Well, I think of those 100-load sea fleets that we had,
Yeah.
black flag after black flag.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it
What a
just-
waste.
Yeah, it just makes sailing so much more
Well,
fun.
if the international Yingling class had its way, we wouldn't have radios either.
That's true, that's true.
It is something
Well,
we
it's
could consider for
Laser
really
class
hot
finally
guys.
let us have electronic compasses a couple years ago, so we felt that was a
So
big,
we can have a tactic with a timer, but that's.
but no other information
Yeah,
as
you
far as
can't-
up plus and minus and
It's
stuff.
gotta be the micro way down the line.
And that's what's nice about the cars, you can program it and set it so it'll only do certain functions, and they will do that for some regattas, it allows you only to use certain functions on it.
That's
And the
cool.
race organization can easily just program it and have it all set, so. So back to racing rules and that type of thing. So anything else in the starting line that you have questions about?
Could you go over just a little bit how downwind starts? 'Cause
Don't.
They should be-
Why they do that just drives me crazy.
They're
'Cause you
illegal in the
ne-
rules of sailing.
what's that?
They're illegal.
Yeah, that's
They're
right.
illegal?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not covered in.
We don't seem to have as many as we used to.
Only on Wednesdays.
I only on Wednesday nights. I guess I think it's, I always look at, if you have a downwind start, it's just a fun race anyway, so it doesn't really make that much
Okay.
difference. Quite honestly, I don't know the rules for when it comes to downwind starts.
Okay, that's fine.
I got more issues than the rules on the downwind.
Yeah. Well, all I know is this starboard tack boat has right away when it comes into this end.
Just come in on starboard,
Starboard,
push
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
up
that-
and go
yeah,
down
push
when
them all
the
and then
gun
go over
goes.
the other side, so.
It's a simple deal.
And remember, there's no proper course. What happens if this boat is sailing like this, kind of reach, and you're like this, and the gun goes off, what does this boat have to do?
Turn to its.
Gotta go back down to its proper course. Unless he is, there again, you gotta go back and, how was the overlap established? And again, think about that, when you're sitting up there, figure out
Well,
who established.
isn't part of it, the proper course might be to the puff that's
And that's true.
4 boat lengths away and he's sailing higher to get to that puff.
So what is proper course?
Yeah, that's the one I'd like to hear about.
You just need to bring some ears on.
Good point, yeah.
Proper course, a course a boat would choose in order to sail the course and finish as soon as possible in the absence of all other boats referred to in the rules using the term. A boat has no proper course before the starting sail. So here, it doesn't matter if the established overlap from astern, but once, if this boat here established from astern, once the gun goes off, he's gotta go down to his proper course. And that's the course he would sail if there was no other boats out here at all. In other words, well, my proper course is I gotta keep my wind clear on this boat. No, that doesn't.
No,
it's-
but if there's a puff right here,
Yep, yeah,
the proper
if you would,
course is to get to the puff and go.
if that's where
as-
you'd sail in the absence of all the
Right.
other boats, you're fine. And you might wanna just
Oops.
inform the other boat that that's what
I
you're
did
doing,
it.
just so that you don't think that,
Right. I'm gonna sail over there until I don't.
Yeah, that's right. I wanna sail over there because I'm gonna fish there on my way down to the leeward mark.
Right.
Let's see, what else? So there's your starts. Now I have to think about this here. Let's start. How would we handle that? Let's look and see what the rule book would say on that. What rules would apply there?
Isn't it just?
I'm gonna have to think about
starboard
this for a
right there?
minute. Oh, I know it.
And
I've got
item
the-
2
I've got
is-
the answer.
Item 2 is the starting buoy?
Yep, it's a starting board, the downwind start.
I think one's got the right of way. The red has the right of way.
And why doesn't this boat get room?
So you can swing up behind him.
But He's got buoy room, doesn't he?
Do you get buoy room at the start?
There you go. Section C of the rule book. At marks and obstructions, Section C rules do not apply at a starting mark surrounded by navigable water or its anchor line from the time the boats are approaching them to start until they have passed them. So that turns off buoy room because it's a starting mark. So that's how you avoid it.
So one has all the rights.
The red.
Yeah, green's gotta find
Green
another
has
way to
to
get
get
across the starting
Yep.
line.
Is there a difference after the gun goes off?
Only if it has to do with this mark. No, this boat, until he clears the mark, he's still at the mark.
Okay.
So in other words, if he was past it, then doesn't make any difference.
If they're both late to the line, the gun goes off, does the green boat get buoy room?
Nope, because it's still a starting mark.
Okay,
That part of it doesn't
period.
change.
And yellow is gonna win because they were on the line, so.
Okay, so basically here, gun goes off, and there's no puff over here,
Yep.
he's gotta go down. Gotta sail his proper course. It happens when the gun goes off and he turns to his proper course and there still isn't room. These guys poor still out of luck, I would think.
Yeah.
Don't start downwind.
Just say no.
Yeah, I know.
But if that was a boat over there,
The Nancy Reagan
you'd
approach.
have to give him room.
Which one, this one here?
Yeah, you'd have
If
to.
you, if, when the gun went off and you changed your proper course, then if there was room.
No,
you
I
could
mean,
go-
if buoy two was a committee boat,
Or another boat.
Are you on the start?
yeah,
Are you talking like over here?
no, I'm talking about right there, if that wasn't a buoy and it was a boat, you'd still.
It's a starting mark. The starting line is considered a starting mark.
Okay,
Both ends of the line. In other words, it would be the boat, this is your starting mark. You have a flag that's signifying the line, but it's still the buoy.
I know, it's just when we were talking about going upwind, it seemed that you had to give the guy room to get it, if he was already in there.
Oh, yes, like this is what you were talking about. Yeah, because that's his proper course, is to go around the mark. Because he's the right-of-way boat. In this situation here, who's the
No,
right-of-way
I was talking
boat?
about the boat end, if we're doing an upwind start on the boat end,
Yeah,
and it sounded like in most cases you had to let that guy in.
only if this boat changes course,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden shuts the door. If this guy was sailing 2 boat lengths here, and you establish, and you're just sitting here left, he can't shut the door like, because you had nowhere to go.
Right, but same could be said on a downwind start.
Show me,
At the mark.
at the mark, she said at the boat,
Well,
Well, she's reversing.
so you're putting it here.
Yeah, if that was a boat, and you were coming down on that start.
On port tack or starboard tack?
Whatever the situation was you were describing, where the two boats were coming into that buoy.
So, there's no buoy room here because section C,
To start.
it's a starting mark. There's no such thing as room for this boat. If it was a case like this, and this boat was here, and he couldn't head
He
up
had the
without hitting,
overlap
in other words, an overlap on the race committee boat, you can't all of a sudden run him into the race committee boat. If you let him in this far, and your course, and you change your course after you've already let him in so that he can't escape, you can't run him into the committee boat. Cause then that's back to the 16-1 where if you change course, you gotta give the other boat room to keep clear. And this boat right now has no room to keep clear.
But you're saying this is a fundraiser, so it doesn't seem matter, you just.
Yeah, I don't know.
Should we move to the windward mark situation?
Sure.
I think think we got the start figured out.
I think there was one other, oh, yeah, here, I got another question here.
Yeah,
Lord Mark, we need to talk about this real quick. So basically,
yeah, it's one penalty turn on at Minnetonka.
yeah, it all depends what your sailing instructions say. It's 2 unless your sailing instructions say otherwise. So I'm gonna go. All right, you got 2 boats coming in here. Let's see, they're gonna be both on port tack.
So the line's the 3-boat circle there.
Yeah, they're coming in here. Anybody want to tell me what he has for obligations? So in other words, who's right away between these 2 boats?
Who hit the yellow boat hit the,
Here, I'll do better
Yeah.
things. Here we go.
that's better.
Yeah, and green's got the overlap.
Is yellow inside the zone?
He's just
Just
touching,
barely.
when he hits the zone, and
green's got
green
an
has an overlap on yellow when he reaches the zone. Is the scenario.
Okay, to me, it feels like the yellow's got the right of way, but he has to leave room at the mark.
He's obligated to
Leave room.
give room. And what is, mark room. Give him mark room. Actually, they rewrote that, so I will read the new rule. And all they did, they didn't really change it at all, they just tried to simplify it, which just is, confusing when you think about it the other ways. When the first of 2 boat reaches the zone, if the boats are overlapped, the outside boat at that moment shall give the inside boat mark room. So basically, you're coming down here, you get to give mark room. Can the green boat do this? Is this okay what the green boat just did?
Yes. Cause he's really fast and he
No.
got there first.
That's a good question, actually.
So
What did
what has he done?
He's altered his course.
Okay,
He's created extra space for the rounding.
right.
Which is
And
what-
so what is mark room
Oh, can't swing wide.
and why?
Yeah,
Because who has right of way?
it's not proper course, right?
Who has right of way between these 2 boats?
Yellow.
Yellow. And what is he required? He's required to give him mark room, and what is mark room? Mark room for a boat to sail to the mark,
Yeah.
when her proper course is to sail close to it, and to round and pass the mark on the required side and leave it astern. So what's mark room for the green boat?
Yeah.
Right there.
If he sails outside of mark room, he doesn't get the protection of being the inside boat and getting mark room.
This is Christine and Charlie Hurd's favorite rule.
So that's the thing that, is important to know that. It just, you've gotta give him room just to round the mark. You don't need to give him room to go ahead and make a tactical rounding.
Yeah, because he wants to make a tight turn around.
Yeah,
the
he
mark.
wants to go wide and tight.
Yeah, right.
Now, if you flip him in the other way,
Yep.
what can this boat do? It can do its. Because who has right of way?
The green.
The green
Green
boat.
boat.
So he has the ability to head him out further and get around, right?
Yeah. And how far can he do this?
Well, that wouldn't be your proper course.
Yeah. And what else do the rules say?
It depends if it's a gate or not.
That's right.
What'd you say, Keith?
Well, it's different if it's a gate.
What if it has a offset?
Okay, we'll go to those, but in basically, in that scenario there, what is this? He's maybe right away, but what is he also obligated to do under buoy rule?
Sail close to it?
Sail no further than proper course before he jives. I gotta find it here though. So when an inside overlap right-of-way boat, must jibe at a mark to sail the proper course. Until she jibes, she shall sail no further from the mark than needed to sail that course. And then the next part of that rule is what somebody's reading for. 18.4 does not apply at a gate mark. So now, how would that? What are the different things with at a gate mark?
Go back to that other picture just briefly. What if that green boat was Cindy and Brian couldn't get the shoot down at the mark? Because that happens.
I've never seen our boat have that problem. We could be sailing forever sometimes.
Is that a protest situation then?
It is, because she sailed further than when she needed. She just needs to turn the boat.
Mm.
You know, in other words,
And then the
I
ship
always
can
think
blow
that's
back
really the
and
most
go
important
on.
thing for a skipper to do anyway. You
It's
ignore
still-
your crew and sail your course.
Right.
You're always going to end up ahead. You know, a lot of times you do get very distracted by what's going on the front of the boat.
Yeah.
But you're
especially
always
if
much
it's-
better off if you just,
Sail the
Separate
course.
it.
if the skipper just steers the boat and gets it around the course where it belongs. And, you know, you're
Gee,
going
how many
to be
times
much
have you
better
heard Brian
ahead.
yell that with the F word in it? Just sail the boat!
Can't imagine that happening.
Hey, we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
No.
What's the gift for that?
I have no idea. I think it's wood.
You get a new ring or anything?
Yeah.
Give him a mallet. Paddle.
Paddle, whack 'em a small paddle.
So this, we're doing a gate right now?
Yeah, this is a gate. Trying to get us so I don't drive the boats and, you know, do whatever so you shouldn't
Well,
do.
yeah, don't do this, people shouldn't do.
But it's because you can't, because all those positions when you know, if you're in a protest area and you're laying out your boats, you know, how you get the boats positioned and stuff, it helps us determine whether there was an overlap and stuff, and when you move it, we can't go back to that position, and so that's why we're always laying them up 1, 2, 3, and it just makes it a lot easier for people to see what's coming. Let's see.
Oh, someone's trying to ask a question here.
Okay.
Let's see, let me turn up the volume here. My efforts to speak apparently cannot be heard. All right. Hello,
You can hear now.
I can hear you now.
Okay, Bruce, question about this. When you're doing the rounding at the leeward mark, the starboard port rules do not apply. Has that been addressed at all?
Okay.
My understanding from Dave Perry is that the reasoning is when you're going downwind, the boats are running close to parallel. That may have been true years ago, but when you're dealing with the asymmetric spinnakers coming at 90 degrees on opposite tacks, that not only is no longer true, but also makes it more difficult to see. But according to rules, I understand 16.2b, the port starboard rule does not apply, and regardless of your tack, you must yield space to an inside boat if the overlap existed when entering the zone.
Correct. I think what you're saying here is if you have
Great question.
port tack boats coming in this way, you have a starboard tack boat here, and you hit the zone,
Right?
this boat's inside of this boat here.
Right.
So,
The green boat must give space to the red boat at the rounding, regardless of their opposed tack.
correct. because he's entitled to mark room, correct? Because he's inside, so he has the right to sail. Where did my pen go? There we go. As the inside, but he has rights to sail to the mark.
But they should be on opposite tack. Show them on opposite tacks.
Like that. He's on starboard, he's on port.
Okay. Yeah, right. I'm sorry, that's correct, yes.
Right, because once he hits the zone,
The port tack boat has right of space regardless.
he has
of
mark room. Yep. He has he has mark room, which entitles him to sail to the mark.
But when did he establish the room on Green who was already in there?
So if maybe Green hit the mark before him.
Yeah.
So he.
But you've got the transom open, so.
It's open.
Yep,
See.
okay.
So now Red's inside.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the starboard tack boat has to give him mark room. So can this boat go like this?
No, he has to
Nope,
turn
he
now.
needs to jibe right away because he only is entitled to mark room, which is to go right there.
Interesting.
So port starboard doesn't apply. Once there's mark room kind of turns everything off. It entitles the boat inside. Windward, leeward, port starboard, all those things get turned off. So that also 16, this boat, once he hits the zone, I think he has mark room, so the other boat has to keep clear.
So this would be a good time to flip that to the windward side. where
Did that answer the
port-
question, Skip?
Right, there's been no change on that rule, I assume.
Okay. All right, so now we're gonna go upwind, right?
Yeah, so now we're talking about coming into the mark, we have a boat coming in on port. And we have boats on starboard.
This is kind of what you're thinking of, right? In other words, boat comes in on port, tacks to leeward.
Is there a 3 boat length issue here?
Yep.
So you get your circle there, okay.
So when this boat entered the 3 boat length circle, looks like you can fetch that mark, right?
Right.
Okay. This boat comes in and does what?
He's gonna
Crosses head to
tack.
wind. So we go to 18.
As I say, the reason I do this is because they've rewritten Rule 18. They've organized it differently is all they did. They didn't really
Change anything?
They didn't really change the meaning. They just changed how it's organized.
So if a boat passes, in 18.3 now says, if a boat passes head to wind from port to starboard, tack, in the zone of a mark to be left to port. So a lot of requirements going on, and here at Minnetonka, I think we always take our marks to port, except for Burton Cup.
Oh.
Burton Cup, occasionally you could have a mark to starboard. But we'll try not to even cover that. Mark to the left to port. Rule 18.2 does not apply between her and the other boat on starboard tack that is fetching the mark. This boat is fetching the mark. If the other boat has been on starboard tack since entering the zone, which it has, the boat that just passed head to wind shall not cause the other boat, this boat here, to sail above close hull to avoid contact. And she shall give mark room to the other boats become overlapped inside her. So in other words, what it's talking about in the first one is, okay, this boat comes up, tacks to leeward. Who is right away here? It's a windward leeward. So red has right away. What can right away do?
Luff up.
it can luff up. But if it makes this boat's jib break, in other words, luff, she just broke 18.3. And the reason for that is when this boat, it's a hard time making it, it goes head to wind, it sends this boat head to wind, it sends this boat head to wind, and there's just a whole cluster up here that you just don't wanna deal with. So that's why they wrote the rule.
So they don't, so green doesn't have to give Mark room in this situation?
He has to stay clear,
Okay.
because it's a windward leeward,
Uh-huh.
but this boat just broke the rule, he
Okay.
gets protested.
Okay.
So the boat that comes in on port tacks, yes, he has leeward position, but he doesn't have full rights to have
He can't
somebody
make this
straight
boat
into
sail
the-
above close hull.
Yep.
If he can come in here, and this boat had overstood a little bit,
Yep.
and now he goes up to here, he has to go up there like that. And this boat loves to go around the mark. Has this boat broken the rule?
If he overstood, no, because he can still
Because
get
this
up
boat
to his
He didn't
close
make
hull.
this boat go above close hull.
What if you tacked and established an overlap outside the zone, just outside the zone?
Out here,
Yeah,
then
Then he has rights.
he has right away, cause he didn't, because
wasn't,
18.3 says when a boat tacks inside the zone, and that means crosses head to wind. In other words, when you tack, in other words, it's really interesting. If you ever wanna have fun and learn the rules, go help somebody umpire team racing or match racing someday. Cause what you do, and just a little diversion here, is when I'm in an umpire boat, and I'm watching two boats, there are usually two umpires in there, and one umpire will take red, the other will take green. And all we do is we verbalize what we see in these boats. And so, if a boat's coming like this, if I'm the umpire for this boat here, I'll say, yeah, I'm starboard right. And the other judge will say, I'm port give. All of a sudden, this boat's starting to tack. He goes, the judge for this one will go, luffing, because luffing is between there and head to wind. Tacking, in other words,
Passing.
once you pass head to wind, it's tacking, and then we'll say complete. That means you're back on port tack. And I think all of you should do that when you're coming in with another boat. And always think about those things, because there's different things that happen as you're going through those different phases. So once you complete once you're tacking, yeah, you're now on you're on port tack here until you get head to wind, and then you instantly become a port tack. And when you complete, all of a sudden you get your right of way. So when I come up to a boat and I'm gonna tack in front of them, I'll always think about, I'm luffing, tacking, and I'll go complete, and I'll say it out loud, and I'll look back at the other boat, just because in my mind, I want a picture of when I felt I was complete and I know where they were.
Know where they are.
And that way, if it comes down and you're tacking too close, I'll know whether I tacked too close and I need to do a turn. But if you get in the habit of vision, or just saying those things, complete, in other words, and I do that when I'm on the E-boat. In other words, when Tom tacks and somebody, I'm always watching when we come back, complete, and I look at the other boat right then and there to know, are we clear or not, or did we, and I think it's just very simple, but it'll save you a lot of grief, and it'll give you a lot more clarity if you end up in a protest room.
So it may sound obscure for us to be working with judging and stuff like that, but one of the things that we talked about this fall was using Yinglings for match racing.
Yep.
And trying to get some of the youth involved, which means there's an opportunity for us to be involved in some judging.
Yeah.
And that might be something that might be a really fun thing for us to do and learn.
The reason I got into judging to begin with is because I'm easily intimidated, and so, if you don't know the rules real well, it's easy to be intimidated. And so that was the reason I really focused on it, is I wanted to know in these close situations, I wanted to know whether I was right or wrong, so that I, wouldn't keep giving away spots and stuff. And so, and it just makes it more fun if you're confident about your rules knowledge. And there's no better way than to go ahead and one, help with judging.
Which
You're gonna
they
see
need.
people bring in these situations, oh, it was blowing 25 and I crossed the guy by 6 inches and you headed, it's like, okay, you know, you realize what you can get by with when you start making those decisions as part of a jury. It's like you hear these people's explanations and it's like, I never could defend that. If you can't defend it, you know, it's not worth the risk of, you know, and it just kind of gives you a lot better sense of the rules and how they work and that type of thing. It'll get you a lot more confident. And so I encourage you from that. And, you know, if you ever really, anybody's serious, I'm gonna give you a plug for US Sailing. If you wanna do that, they actually have an online course, and in fact, I'll actually do it in person. But what they did is during COVID, they go, you know, we can't do any education courses because we can't have groups of people together. So and I was in charge of club judge for US Sailing, and they said, all right, Bruce, put that online. And so we got together with some teachers, and we have an online platform for teaching. And so it basically, you know, goes through all the different phases of a protest hearing. You know, what you do beforehand, what you do when the parties first come in, you know, the validity, taking testimony, decision, or, you know. And so then we basically have just like a little, read the judge's manual, what it talks about each little divisions, and then there's a little PowerPoint that gets the highlights, and then we have a little quiz at the end. And so basically it takes you through online, and so you basically learn online all this. And the quiz is, you know, after you've taken it, it comes back and gives you all the answers and the references and stuff. So it's really set up nicely that you can really learn from it. And then what we did in online, you know, people had to do that, and that usually took them anywhere from 2 to 6 to 8 hours or whatever. There's a whole thing on racing rules of sailing or whatever that I'll give you the address for too, if you want to look at rules. But after you did the Canvas online course, then we would get together for 2-hour sessions on Zoom, and we would have experienced judges come in and, you know, play the 2 parts and help supervise the hearings. And we put each person in charge of, you know, chairman and the different positions, scribing, you know, taking the testimony and stuff. And, you know, it really worked out. And so now we finally people have the option to become judges and learn. And we don't care whether you become a judge and certified, but it'll give you a lot better understanding, or if you get asked to help with you know, protest hearings, you'll be much more confident because you know how it's supposed to be done, or best practices. And so it's a great course, and but you'll see that the more you understand the rules, just the more confidence you're going to have on the water. And also by being part of a protest committee, you kind of learn what you can get by with, what you can't. When it, you know, okay, I might have right of way, but boy, there's no way if I'm going to protest, or I'll give way because it's too close. So just think about that, as far as things, if you've got spare time and you need something to do. And as I said, I'll do them in here. If we have 4 or 5 people that want to do it, we just spend, usually it's like better part of a day just going through, and we just do a bunch of protest hearings. And you just get to play the roles of different protest hearing, and usually we get experienced judges. In fact, in COVID, we actually had friends and stuff that were judges in Australia and everybody else come in and were supervising judges. So we really had a lot of fun. Wow. And, you know, it's great experience from people from all over. So it's really kind of helped the judging world. So back to this, one thing I was thinking that we didn't cover.
Bruce, would you go through that again when you got the green boats on,
Oh, coming up to the mark?
yeah.
Okay, so if he's overstood,
Let's not say he's over, so.
he's right on, he's going right straight at the mark, and this boat comes in, he may have right of way, but because he went past head to wind in the zone, Rule 18.3 says if a boat passes head to wind in the zone from port to starboard on a mark that's to be left to port, he can't make that boat sail above close haul. And the easiest way for me to watch that is to get testimony that your jib break.
Yeah, my crew. Like
But your crew let out the jib. Your crew let out the jib.
Exactly, it broke all over the place. Is that fair?
So does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if this guy's overstood and reaching in, you can go ahead and he's gotta give you room as a leeward boat, but only if you don't make him sail the close hull. And I think, let's see. Now you want a really complex one? Let's see how we can do this.
Yeah, cause this is all so simple.
You guys would.
Ooh.
Okay, this is a zone out here.
Was green fetching the mark at that point? Was on course to, yeah.
Okay, and what happened to him here?
He ended up getting forced high.
About closer hull. Okay. So which of these two boats is in trouble? So what happened? Who has right away here? Again, it's always between two boats.
Right.
Yeah,
Who has right away?
yellow.
Okay. And actually they completed the tack. They both tacked and they cleared each other in the tack, okay. Who has right away here?
Red.
What happened to this boat? This boat had to keep clear of this one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and when he had to keep clear, he made that boat go above close hull.
Red.
So
So
yellow's
who
in the
would,
wrong?
who would probably lose in this protest hearing?
Yellow?
Red.
No.
Red.
Really?
Because he's the one that ultimately caused yellow. What yellow would get exonerated under 43.2 or something. If a boat forces you to break a rule, you can get exonerated.
Right. But if yellow boat hadn't been there, there wouldn't have been an issue.
Right. Well, unless this
Well,
boat
he
had a
still
sail
was-
off close hull, then again it goes
You
right back
still
to the same
can't sail
thing.
them above
Okay.
close hull.
Because here, both boats tacked inside the zone. So
Right.
then it comes down to just, 18.3 doesn't apply. Between these two boats. As I say, always, everything is between two boats.
Okay.
It's between the yellow boat and the green boat, and the green boat and the red boat. But this boat caused the boat to go, but it's exonerated because he was forced to do it because of that boat sailing.
Can you put in an offset
Mm-hmm.
with or without intersecting zones?
Okay, so hopefully, well, they're probably this far apart then. So in other words, the zone, that's what you're talking about, right?
Or no,
Okay.
that's a gate or an offset?
Offset.
An offset. We would
Okay.
mark.
Okay, so basically, boats around here. What determines a boat getting inside, in other words, this boat's coming up from astern, let's see if we can do that.
This boat is red, correct?
I will.
Are you
Basic-
motoring those little
Yeah.
boats
Oh, no,
along?
don't worry, I'm gonna move the other ones back here. So in other words, Green put their spinnaker in the water here or something and got going really slow.
Again.
That never happens.
Mm-mm.
What you're wanting to know is, the overlap was established, but in other words, Red had to give, actually, I think we're doing this. the other
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
You're doing it the other way.
yes,
there you go.
This is what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
There. So yeah, initially Red had right away inside boat, and then it went really slow and this boat got clear ahead by the time it hit the zone. It's when this boat hits the zone.
So Red has no rights at that point.
In other words, this boat's entitled to mark room, so he gets to sail to the mark, and this boat's gotta keep clear. So that's the other one I was gonna say, you guys occasionally on Wednesday nights, you used to sail with A boats.
Mm-hmm.
This is your Yingling, actually, it's a bit over here. This is your Yingling coming into a mark.
This is exactly.
And this is an A boat,
Yeah.
way the heck out here. What determines the zone? What distance?
First boat. Yeah.
Two boat lengths, isn't it?
First boat to enter.
First boat to enter the zone. So the zone of a Yingling is about 60 feet, right? Are you guys over 18 meters? Do you have to carry a protest flag?
Hell if I
You're
know.
not under, if it's greater than, 6 meters, you have to have a flag.
Yeah.
If you're less than equal
Yes.
to it,
I think we do.
you have to, because you're 20, I think, aren't you?
Yeah.
So in other words, the zone here is 60. If this is the A boat,
Feet.
that's about 75 feet or whatever.
Yeah, right.
6 meters.
No, he meant.
He meant feet.
No, 6 meters. The rule is if you're under 6 meters, or over 6 meters, you have to have a protest flag. So 18 feet, that's roughly 18 feet.
So wait, and A is what, 38?
38,
Yeah, so it's really close to like 100 feet.
40, it's almost 120, it's like 110 feet.
There you go.
Whole bunch of feet.
So, what determines a zone?
So first
First boat
First
in.
boat in the zone.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
it's the boat closest to the mark, not in the zone. So
Oh,
That's, I think maybe something that's changed.
let me just look at it here real quick. So,
cause this happens with e-boats,
Yeah.
and we love e-boats, by the
Yeah, I
way.
know.
But,
well, put it this way, after sailing my brother's Yingling,
yeah,
you guys can't see anything out of the Yinglings. To me, I had no idea how hard it was to see other things. And I don't know if it's just because my brother's, the windows are so fogged, but you can't see through them very well. And they just aren't big enough to really see people on port tack very well. So, I didn't see him as not an excuse you can use in a hearing. So, don't,
My windows were fogged.
Yeah. But, and I can tell you also, e-boats don't see very well to leeward either.
no.
I mean, we literally can't see
We
under our
know that,
spinnakers.
Bruce.
We basically head up and
Yeah,
down
I know.
occasionally, just so that we can kind of see what's up there. And if somebody changes course or tacks and stuff, in between the times we
Well,
use our
you
little
guys
maneuver.
might do that, a lot of e-boats don't.
Yeah, you're just trying to see.
Right,
I mean, I almost
right,
ran over a
right.
fishing boat one day. I mean, he yelled at me, but I missed him by a couple.
Yeah.
At least 10, 20, 30 feet.
feet.
So a zone, the area around a mark within a distance of 3 hull lengths of the boat nearest to it.
Okay, so we establish
He's the nearest
the
boat to
zone,
it, because he's the boat nearest to it.
right,
So that's why I wanted to read it, because I think that may have changed a little bit.
cause that's a significant deal, cause
It was really complex before.
The
This
A
is,
or the E are going so much faster, and yet, they can come in and feel like they have room, but
this
they
guy's
don't
just coming
actually.
out of Excelsior.
Right,
Does this boat have room on the yellow boat? If your boats around him?
well, not if he hit the zone here first,
Who
right?
hit the zone first?
The yellow,
Yellow.
And what, is this boat inside?
No.
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, for the
So
transfer.
he's
Oh,
he's
sorry,
entitled
yes,
to
yes,
room.
yes, right, yes.
He could be a half a mile away.
Oh,
And you're gonna Yingling that's going kinda slow.
Yeah.
And this guy's just got his asymmetrical up, and he comes in from so far out that you didn't even think he was gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
He's got room. That's the one thing you gotta really know, and it's the zone is when you hit the, so now if you did something fancy like this, and you got to the zone and you went, oh, let's say how you go like this. You come into the zone and you try to, I swung my bow down, so I cut the zone off and he was astern of me. There's a rule that handles that too. So, So
So
what's the-
basically, we have to give him room, even if he's 2 miles out.
So let's do it with an E, cause that's more the likely situation.
so
that
that's
we
30
get.
feet, that's, 90
90
minus 4, or minus 6 is 94.
80.
Of 1,000 feet.
Yeah, that's still a long way out
So
there.
they're way over there.
Yeah.
Still,
and they are-
it's when you hit, it's when the
When we-
first boat hits the zone.
The zone,
And the zone is determined by the length of your boat.
so we
You
should
gotta
be
look
looking
at your transom.
And they're going
So
3
we should be, when
times
we
the
hit the
speed we
zone,
are.
we should look around and think, where are the E's?
Right, yeah, where are the rest of the
Because-
boats? Anybody inside of me?
Or even the X's are going so much faster.
Yeah. So, yeah,
So
that's
then
when
that
you
E
hit the
comes
zone.
Screaming in, they have rights.
Oh, yeah. And they know it too. And they may not ask nicely, who knows? I can't imagine that happening. So yeah, you really gotta be careful. It's boats that you don't even think are even in the same race as you are. When you hit the zone.
So you look back at your
Transom, side across your transom.
and
Anybody forward of that, between the mark and forward of it, it's got room.
And there's really nothing about like
I don't know how you would possibly tell.
sportsmanship
how
of
can you see
3
that
boats.
that E is ahead of your transom there?
Because you just sight where you possibly, where you think your transom is. Just look at your transom and just an imaginary line going off your
And
transom.
he's likely
But
gonna
you
be
have the
inside.
boats over there.
Yeah, but it's just, your transom is, if you sight across and draw your line way out there, he's ahead of this line.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's why that, now, the other thing too is that when you were talking about,
Plus he's coming in on a reach.
yeah, he's going really fast. It's 18. As I say, they renumbered these rules a little bit so I could actually look at a new rule book.
So what you're saying is we should not allow e-boats in Minnetonka.
It's basically, that's why we put them on separate courses on Wednesday night.
Yeah, which
It's
is
just,
nice.
it's really hard.
And that's been way better too.
Right, but they are changing, I think their official race day is Tuesdays now, or Mondays?
Okay.
So they're, the only ones that are racing on Wednesdays, well, no, let's see, it's not a championship race. Their champion race is now not on Saturdays. On Saturdays, the only people that are racing are Yinglings, M15s, and one other boat.
Huh, okay.
The Cats and E's have moved their champion races to like Monday or Tuesday.
Oh, they have.
Yeah.
So, one other thing on the downwind, just cover this real quick.
And a lot of the reasons is because of crossover of crew. Yeah.
So they're not gonna be sailing with us on Saturdays anymore?
No,
Oh.
just three fleets on Saturdays, and I can't remember the third. It's like, and they're all about the same size, and and speed. So.
We're running out of board
Sundays
space
will be
here.
the only days we're sharing with the E's then?
So what? No, Wednesdays.
Wednesdays still.
Wednesdays, yeah. But it's not a champion race.
So Wednesday they won't have their own private course like they.
Correct.
They
Correct.
will not.
I don't think so.
They'll be sailing with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think, but
they're
it's not.
having a hard time staffing the committee boat, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, we lost Declan.
Right.
Yeah. So
Oh.
yeah. Declan and his girlfriend moved to Florida, I believe, for a really good job she had, or something like that. So that's a bummer.
He should just break up with her.
Okay, make a choice, her or us.
I think
Where's
he
your
did.
loyalty?
I think you did. Not the right choice. Anyway, she better make good biscuits. Anyway, or something.
What did they-
Stop that. See, you're in mixed company.
Sorry.
Are you trying to censor Cindy?
Yeah, that's a hard job.
We love Cindy the way she unfiltered. Unplugged.
Okay.
Do we get to choose?
So,
It's only one
let's
seat.
look at this scenario. First one is up here. All of a sudden, this boat gets to the zone. This boat is coming really fast. And it goes, I got an overlap right at the zone. Just as you entered, I established, 4 feet before you enter the zone, I established an overlap. I want room. What's gonna happen if you go to a hearing?
You'll lose. You won't get room.
Yeah, and that's because if there's reasonable doubt that a boat obtained or broke an overlap in time, it shall be presumed she did not.
Okay.
I was at a World Cup event, and there was one of the same thing, they came in and I got an overlap just the time, no I didn't. And the chairman goes, how many think you had an overlap? Raise your hands. How many don't think you had an overlap? Have the other half raise their hands. It didn't. I mean, that's just how simple and quick that was. I mean, it was just like, there's question, you didn't make it. You didn't break it. And so that's why when you're coming up to a zone and you're saving me 4, 5, 6, 8 boat lengths, you hear me yelling, I've got an overlap, and you say, I don't care, I'm not at the zone. It's because I'm trying to establish the fact that I had an overlap and that you're gonna have to break it. You know, in other words, it doesn't come down to that, but it gives both boats a lot of time to think about it and decide, okay, they didn't or they didn't, and you know what's gonna happen. And if I'm sailing and I'm being good, and you say you just broke an overlap, you just got an overlap, I'm gonna give you room and I'm gonna put my flag up.
Does that device that you have on?
Let it down, duck.
Yeah, that's right.
Does that device you were talking about on the east tell you that?
It doesn't give you the zone, no, that would be really great if it did. You're entering the zone now.
That would-
Yeah, wow.
Oh, yeah, right?
And it might
But
be
we
worth
could go ahead and use
$1,000.
that as, I imagine, I'm sure we're gonna have those, cause people can bring in whatever they want to a protest hearing. And they have a sail track of all those positions of the boats during the whole time. So they really could bring it, and they actually have boat directions and stuff, so you really could see overlaps. What we usually will say though is they have to provide all that for the jury or the protest committee. We won't go and look for it on our own usually, but if somebody brings it, we'll look at it as evidence and take it for what if we think it's an accurate representation, you know, it'd certainly be helpful. But, yeah, so watch that, if you, either you broke it or it's like this.
But that comes
and,
back
yeah.
to communicating too, is,
Yeah, I
you know,
think so.
if you're talking to each other and you're saying, do you think I have an overlap, or, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that,
But we'll see this happen a lot, you know, especially like with E-boats or something like that too. In other words, an E-boat's coming in from behind you, you're the one that determines the zone because you're the one closest to it. So it's now, you know, 60 feet, not 90 feet.
right.
And so it's, there's a lot of questions. So if he thinks he just barely gave it, yeah, you're probably gonna let him round inside of you because he's a bigger boat and you really don't wanna hit each other, and he probably got himself trapped because
You
it
came
happened
in
so
so
quick
fast, yeah.
that he now can't get out of your way. And it's like, if you're not in the same fleet and stuff, don't fight with another boat that's not in your fleet. Let him get by. He's gonna be, if you let him go, he'll probably be by you and so fast and gone and cleared the zone that it won't even matter. And so that's why I say, don't fight between fleets. You know, if somebody's, you can see a close Yingling race, we'll go ahead and duck. Let you guys fight it out. We don't wanna be your pick that some people try to use another boat as a pick to get rid of somebody, but, you know, if you're got opposite boats in different fleets, just let them go. And it's, as I say, most of the time, they're gonna get by you quick enough that it isn't gonna make any difference. Like if an E-boat's coming downwind, it's amazing, you will really slow an E-boat down if we get stuck behind Yinglings with spinnakers up. The shadows and stuff of those are pretty significant. And speaking as an E-boat, say if we go over the top of you, both of you are gonna get affected the same. You're back out racing again. Or if we can, we'll jive and go off the other way. If you guys are all real close, we really don't wanna mess with you guys anyway and get in between, go through you. It's just, we'd much rather hopefully not disrupt.
Well, again, it's you and Tom are nice.
We're pretty aggressive. Everything changes when you get on the water. I don't know why, you get a stick in your hand and your personality changes.
The takeaway for me from this is just once, starboard, port, whatever, and leeward boat, but once we're in the zone, so would it be helpful, so then my question is about the role for crew here.
Mhm.
So once, would the crew would it be helpful for a crew to be like, okay, calling out I see that we're in the zone now, and then look aft and be like, and kind of call.
You're probably gonna be the one, cause he's gonna be trying to get a spinnaker in, and he's gonna be taking the pull down, and you're gonna be, skipper's usually gonna, you're further back in the boat. You're gonna be the one closest, but you can look at 6 boat lengths out, and kind of look across and say, all right, is there anybody that's near contention, that I might have to worry about? So you can do that long before you hit the zone itself. And that's what we encourage you to do, is to look and get a picture of what's going on out here beforehand. And say, oh yeah, I've got these E-boats, they may be coming a lot faster, so I gotta really watch for them on my left side here to see if they're coming at me.
Okay.
And be ready to go down. And if you've got 2 or 3 other boats here, if you got all these other boats here and you're here, and you know you got somebody way out here, there's 2 boats coming down, you're gonna have to give a lot of room. And so you can ask these boats to give you more room, because you're having to give these other boats more room. And you're, in other words, who's right away? He's right away. But if there was a protest between these boats, you'd be exonerated because you were giving room to these other boats. You broke windward leeward, but you're exonerated because you're giving room to another boat that's entitled to room.
So it'd be appropriate to basically establish to them, I'll have to give room to these E's, so
Yeah.
give room for me.
Give me a lot of room because,
Yeah.
you know, they come in and trying to drop an asymmetrical, who knows what happens
Yeah,
sometimes.
at 40 miles an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
So the skipper should just say room to tack to those other boats.
Room, I'm gonna need room to give these E-boats room.
Gives the E-boat, okay.
They're entitled to room, I need to give them room too. So just,
Could you explain proper course? We have a sailor in our fleet that really likes to luff people up, and you know, you're going between marks. And I remember in the old days it was master beam kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
you could tell a guy, you got to go down now. You can't just keep driving me off the course here. But that whole master beam thing has disappeared.
right.
So I knew that rule, but I'm now confused about when I can say, hey, come on, this is ridiculous. You're driving me into the North Home shore and the mark's over there. Is there anything like that anymore? I mean,
No, he just gets to, you know, don't keep trying to go over him. That's the only thing you do, is you can just luff and just go behind him.
okay.
I mean, unfortunately, there really isn't. And, you know, if you're right at my hip and I want to make sure I beat you and you're the only other boat out there between me and the finish line, I'm not gonna let you go over me.
Okay.
And there's nothing much you can do. And it's the leeward boat, he can luff you head to wind.
Yeah.
Now, what can you do downwind? If you're out there like this, and let's see, how do we do this? You establish, let's see. So basically, you're sailing side by side,
Yeah.
and this boat has luffing rights.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can just push you off to the left.
And so what they'll do a lot of times in team racing, if it's like this, is they'll head up like this,
Okay?
and jibe, and then all of a sudden, let's see, how do they do this?
Because he broke the overlap.
Yeah, he broke the overlap. You'll swing up, the winter boat will swing up, break the overlap,
Yeah.
and then come back down. And now all of a sudden, if they're within 2 boat lengths, he can't sail up his proper course.
Oh, okay.
And if you just jibe, you get to the same place, don't you?
Yeah,
With yellow
that's
dot?
usually on port tack when that happens. In other words, you got a starboard tack.
Yeah.
In other words, you go this way and then this way, and then you reestablish, and so then now you can luff again because there was an overlap. So that's why you flip your boom one side, the other. If you establish from astern, because you went from starboard to port and then you're back on.
I've got a question about offsets. Okay, so let's see if this is the offset and this is the mark.
Do you have a Kleenex or anything? I just wipe off some of
I
my.
have a little eraser.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Look at that, huh?
All right.
I could have given
Is that
you that earlier.
the right size? There we go.
Oh.
You're half done. I'll set this up. Okay, so
There's another mark.
yeah. Okay. All right. So. So okay, we're like this. This is the offset. We've already gone around through the mark. Okay, all that is great. Okay, and actually it'd be like this. Okay, now we're past the mark. Okay, I want to turn I gotta give this guy room, right? But if this guy doesn't turn ever and he keeps going, I mean, doesn't he have to like sail the course eventually? I mean, I gotta wait for him to turn. If he doesn't turn, what happens?
You're both on starboard, and
Yeah.
you wanna, and do you wanna, you can head down and see
Okay.
what he does,
Okay,
but you've gotta keep clear. In other words, you can do right now, you can do anything you want.
Right.
Because there's no overlap.
right, okay.
And so until there's an overlap,
Mhm.
you're under no obligation.
But what
And
if there
as
is
soon-
an overlap?
But now if you turn down and he's holding his course,
Uh-huh,
Rule 15 doesn't apply. He doesn't have to give you, you don't get room to keep clear
Okay.
because you created the change in right of way. In other words, by you
Okay.
heading down, you
Okay.
created an overlap with him.
okay,
So then that doesn't give you the protection of time to keep clear or room to keep clear.
okay.
So he could have just kept pushing Cindy out.
Yeah, you could just keep going like that. And what do you just start going down? If you're clear ahead,
Uh-huh.
you can keep working down in
Right,
front of
right,
him.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you're,
right.
who's has right away here between these two boats.
The green one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words, you can
Right.
you can go down and just see what happens.
Mhm. It's all about the overlap.
But
Right.
if there's
But
an
if there's an
overlap,
overlap-
they can sail you. to-
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Boom.
just
Yeah.
like
Get a burger at Maynard's at that point.
Yeah, I know.
sometimes
And
you
that
tell
might
them
be
that
the
too.
proper
You know?
course.
Yeah.
But now, if this boat, it's the other way around. If it was this way, if this boat established the overlap from his stern,
Uh-huh,
then he can't sail above his proper course. Because you're now in a downwind light.
okay, sure, okay.
So that's how you get down. Is
Yeah.
if he established from his stern,
Mm-hmm,
so then you could always do one of these.
oh,
Now he established from his stern,
yeah, okay,
but, he doesn't have to give you room. You gotta still keep yourself clear, but
I
then,
got it.
then all of a sudden now he has to go down because
Got
he
it,
can't sail
okay.
above his proper course. That's how you get out of that.
okay.
So anything else?
Any questions?
Very helpful.
This is good.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Happy to do this.
This was amazing.
Yeah.
You did
I
a
always
great
learn
job.
something every time I go do these too, so it's mutually
Bruce, can you
beneficial.
hear us out there?
Yeah, we can hear ya.
Bruce, you were mentioning this GPS-driven device that you're using on the eScout for starts and race management and over the line calls, and you were trying to recall the name of the device. And for the group, here it is.
Oh, good.
It's Vacaros, VAKAROS.com.
Thanks, Willie. I knew you'd know that. But you just look at it, it's a really neat device. I mean, I would think that it would set up that you could even actually learn how to sail downwind with it better, because it would have velocity made good.
It'd be
I'd
a
have to look at
great
that and see,
tool
but it
just
just-
to have to
Practice.
use for practice if we can't use it in race.
I use a Velocitech on my laser when I go out and practice by myself, and basically what it is I use it to take and watch my boat speed. In other words, when you crack off, and 4 or 5 degrees, how much your boat speed goes up. And so,
a quarter of a knot with a Yingling.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
it makes a
huge.
big difference. So.
Huge.
Well, thanks guys. If you have any questions.
It will tell you when you have weeds on your centerboard beside
Yeah, interesting.
You're talking a tenth of a knot, and it will tell you that.
Yeah.
There you go.
So great. Look at those if you have any questions. Those actually, I should give you. Let me look real quick here at something. See if I covered everything. I think I think February 12th. Dave Perry is actually here
Right.
for the sailing school.
At the community center.
Let's see what else. Oh, US Sailing, if you wanted, like where those came from, if you basically go to ussailing.com or .org, go to competition, racing rules, and scroll to the bottom. You'll get all the information you can ever think of. The other thing too is that if you have an iPhone or just like a tablet, they actually have an app, and on that app you can go through the rule book and just find everything, and it has, you can click on where it says Perry, and it'll actually give you the section of his book on rules to take and read up on it, and they'll give you a much more clarification. So I really encourage you all to become a US Sailing member, and then you get the free app, and it's great. It kind of looks like that. It's just an app. You can have, there's a protest form you can fill out. Also, that was the other thing I was talking about too, protest. Don't get your protest invalid because you failed to do something. And I'd say we throw out more protests than we hear out most of the time because people don't follow the rules. And we can't, even if there's damage, hear a protest that doesn't meet the proper, yeah, it has to be valid. So this year is different. They've actually changed that. That's one thing I was gonna tell you. All you need now to take and file a protest is you need the protester's name, the protestee, and a description of the incident. And before, all you needed is you needed to file a protest and be on time, and you could basically change everything else. Now you have to have the name of the protester, of the boat you're protesting, and it has to be on time, and just describe the incident. When you describe the incident, it was beginning of race 1, or on first windward beat, port tack boat didn't keep clear of me on starboard. You don't need any fancy diagrams, you don't need any of that. You just need to describe the incident. In fact, I can't think of a single protest hearing that I've heard on World Sailing or anywhere else where anybody's ever drawn at the end on a protest, they've drawn a description. In other words, when we do our finding of facts and stuff, we never have a diagram. It's always just the facts. So don't waste your time. Get it in on time. And Minnetonka Yacht Club, I went on their website trying to figure out what the requirements were. And they have them really strict and strange. I mean, I will try to push them not to have this, but basically it needs to be in writing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that on anything. You can put it, you can send it in an email, you can send it on a napkin, you can do whatever you want. Most of them have to be in writing. You have to follow your sailing instructions too, because they'll have some things. But I think at NYC, you have to take and have it in by midnight, and then you have to call David Cross, and you have to send this, and they have all these requirements, which it's easy to screw up on. And then also we can't hear it, no matter what happened, we can't hear it, or it'll get overturned in an appeal. So it's not that we're trying to get out of it, it's just we know better that we can't hear an invalid protest.
So to clean that up, from a board perspective,
Talk to me.
Well, talk to you, but is it basically George who's in charge of race committee, George Kennedy?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
But I can
I'll
tell you
reach out to him. I just wanted to, it's either him or the PRO, so it's either him or,
Oh, whoever writes your sailing instructions.
okay.
And like at NYC or at Wayzata, all you need to do there is, it's protest at wyc.org. And you just fill out that email, and you just put the name of the protester, protestee, and just a 5-word description of what happened, or where it happened, and it timestamps it, so we know when it came in. And maybe they could set that up at NYC too. I mean, it would make it so much simpler, and then what happens from that is, those of us that help with protest committee, it just sends us an email. And so then we can go from there.
I've been talking to Michael Bailey, who's a East Coast judge,
Okay?
and he said a couple of things to know about, is you have to say protest.
Yes.
That's that hail that you mentioned earlier. You can't say do your turns, I mean, if you're gonna protest. And then you have to have the red flag up within 60 seconds or something like that. You can't be digging around in your cockpit underneath.
There's no time,
Okay.
but it has, first reasonable possible. In other words, if you have to go look for it, you probably took more time than you should.
Yeah, and he says.
My suggestion is you have it in your pocket.
Yeah, because he said we can throw these things out real quickly if you don't do X, Y, and Z.
We have to. It's not that we want to, it's
Right.
we have to.
Yeah.
And, because otherwise it just gets overturned on appeal, and that wastes a lot of time. And so if it's not valid, we're gonna tell you it's not valid. And I don't know if they wanna do, we also do arbitration in Wayzata, which is really good. And basically what that is, you basically, after the race come in and you get a judge, will sit in it's a 15-minute process. Basically, I listen to you, ask you a couple questions, no witnesses, and I'll tell you, I think you broke a penalty, I think you broke a rule. I won't tell you what, because I don't wanna give you any ideas. I just will tell you, you broke a rule, because if you did not wanna take arbitration, it can go to a hearing, so we don't wanna take and let you know what we're thinking. It's not that we're trying to be invasive, it's just that we don't wanna tip the scales one way or the other. And it's just, we feel that you should take a penalty, and if you're the vote being protested, and you say, all right, I'll take the 30% penalty, and usually it's a 30% penalty for taking it before a hearing. Arbitration is not a hearing, it's just a arbitration. And you can take your 30%, and then I have to ask the vote that's protesting you if you'll withdraw the protest. And if you will sign off that you withdraw the protest, it's done. It can't be reopened, it can't be done anything more, it's done. You can't go back. If you say, no, I don't wanna withdraw the protest, and you said you're gonna take 30%, it'll go to a hearing, and it may be that you were found, you didn't make it was actually he who made the mistake. You still gotta take your 30%, but even if you were found wrong, you still can only get 30%, even if you're not gonna get DSQ'd. It's, in other words, so it's an advantage if you think you might be wrong, take your 30%, let him go. Who knows, he may have been wrong and he gets thrown out, and he can get DSQ'd.
Wait a minute, you looking at me?
Yeah. Just cause you're the other person.
Oh, okay.
Can you send us a link to the training thing, the judge training thing?
It's on US Sailing website.
It is?
Just go to
Okay.
US Sailing
Alright,
and look under judges, and
Yeah.
it'll have
Okay, thanks.
that type of thing, so. And then, basically, it's just, you can get that's what the app looks like, and it just, if you wanna go the rules, you just hit rules, and it breaks it all up, like, let's see, where is it? Goes through the whole rule book. It just gives you everything you can think of, and it gives you the access to Dave Perry's
Yeah,
book
that's pretty
without having to
awesome.
buy his book. So, great.
Nice.
So any questions, don't hesitate to hear me. It's just Bruce_Martinson@yahoo.com. So.
This is good, really good.
So we